Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having a fantastic start to your day. Thank you all for joining me this morning as we try to figure out what's going to happen weather-wise for your Friday. There's two or three things to speak on out there this morning. One being this upper level low that we've been speaking on for the last few days, really, that's continued to bring a flash flooding risk to California, and now it's going to really bring a flash flooding risk to like Arizona today, where there's a lot of heavy rain falling because of it. And then there's another system that we've kind of been speaking on that was going to enter the picture of the last couple of days, that's entering the Pacific Northwest. These two areas will actually combine to create one storm, and then we will have a Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, a couple days after Christmas, a storm system. And I will have a separate segment in this video speaking on that. And I mean, not just for the middle of the country, but there will be a lot of moisture that gets kind of slung into the deep south and the eastern U.S. too. So skip ahead if you're not really concerned about the weather for today, if it's not doing much for your area. Not going to be offended at all. But if you really want an update on this pattern change, I will have a separate segment for that too. We're going to get you guys some new update information from yesterday, the overnight model guidance, and even this morning's model guidance, talking about what could potentially happen as we kind of get into the last few days of the year and then the first few days of 2024. I really do think there's a pattern change on the way. Confidence continues to do nothing but increase. And yeah, we're going to speak on it, try to explain it in a way where you guys can understand, and try to figure this one out. I think there's some active times ahead as we round off this year. So stay tuned, buckle up, and I think we got a lot coming up that we need to figure out, that's for sure. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Sorry I'm dropping this video a little bit later than I normally do. It's probably not going to drop until about 9, but here it is. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling and see if this is working. We got yellow this morning. Okay, normally have pink. Here's our upper level low that continues to just spin around. You can see the spin. This is pumping a lot of moisture into California still, and now bringing a lot of moisture even into Arizona, where there is a flooding risk. Now, if you look right here, this is another system entering the picture. Eventually, these two will combine somewhere, into here. Okay, and we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves because like I said, we have a separate segment in the video speaking on this. But these are your two big players on the field, this one, and they will combine somewhere into here. Now, there's a lot of moisture getting pushed out ahead of this. Okay, you see kind of the whiter colors right here in Arizona, Iowa, and it is raining even areas outside of those regions I just mentioned. That is some moisture. There's even some moisture around in the southeast. In fact, somebody was reporting a little bit of sleet in North Carolina this morning. So there's a good bit of moisture out there in the lower 48 in general, and that's because we have this pretty big ridge really in place, and no big cold air mass in place unless you live up in the northeast where it is very cold this morning. So that's what's going on right now based off water vapor loop. Let's get all this off your screen. In fact, I'm going to go on and switch this to black because we're going to use this later in the video. As far as what's going on based off radar, you would think there's a lot of moisture out there. A lot of this in the southeast is not hitting the ground. Now, like I said, I did see a report kind of outside the Raleigh area where there was a little bit of sleet falling. So not a big deal at all, but this is always interesting in the south. If you can get a couple snowflakes or sleet pellets, it makes everybody go buy all the bread and milk, that's for sure. Missouri, Iowa, this is starting to enter Illinois. Definitely some widespread light to moderate rain in some areas, maybe some heavy rain. But you can see these two pieces pretty well based off the radar. Sometimes it's not this clear, and it really is clear. Look at all the rain entering Washington and northwest Oregon. Some higher elevation snow. You got to get way up there. This is still a warmer system. And then this upper level low that continues to spin. Finally, over the next couple of days, this will get away from California and stop delivering a whole lot of rain for you folks. But a big area of rain getting pushed into Arizona this morning. It'll be a rainy day for sure for like Phoenix and eventually getting into Tucson. And as we're getting into tomorrow and the next day, we will finally start to lose the grip of the rain in like San Diego, Los Angeles, all those places. So got a little bit of moisture up here in the upper Midwest. But moving forward, the Storm Prediction Center, there is a risk for some severe weather in southern Arizona. south of Phoenix, really. You got to get into the southern sections of Arizona for this. So there is a general risk of thunderstorms even up here for Portland to Seattle. I mean, and down here from Los Angeles all the way to Houston, Texas. Tornado threat, less than 2%, so it doesn't even show up on your screen. Wind threat, got a 5% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, there is a 5% risk of hail. So not a big threat today, but we do have a marginal risk. So, you know, it's a little bit more uncommon to see severe weather in the southwest, that's for sure. Flash flooding risk, you do have a slight risk. We'll see if this upgrades to a moderate risk sometime today. In fact, let's see if there's a new update. There is not. Okay, so the yellow means there's a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in any given location. So we will watch for a lot of runoff in these areas. You know, typically these areas don't see as much rain in a very short amount of time as other areas of the country. So we need to always watch out for these regions. And looking at watches and warnings, that's why you do have the flood watches in the green down here. Some winter weather advisories, you got to get way up higher in elevation. You know, even up here in the Cascades, you don't even have them up for the Olympic Mountains. It really shows you how warmer of a system this is. There's a lot of fog across the country. This happens when you have a ridge in place, and a pretty large-scale ridge is dominating the country. Typically, you get a lot of fog when it comes to a ridge in place. But winter storm warnings are already up for areas of southern Colorado, the higher elevations of New Mexico, even Arizona, where this upper level low will swing through, kind of bring its own cold air. Enough cold air where the higher elevations get snow. The eastern U.S. Is quiet. It's pretty cold up in the northeast and still chilly, a chilly morning across the southeast, but no watches, warnings, advisories. Let's talk about the southeast first. Another somewhat quiet day, but you can tell moisture is on the increase. I think that there'll be a higher chance of rain as we get one day closer to Christmas, which, you know, is a couple days from now, and I think it's going to be a rainy Christmas for a lot of areas in the south, and we'll speak on that here in a minute, but we do have that rain across northern sections of Arkansas up into Missouri. Some rain showers will be possible, especially in eastern Florida today. You can see them down here as we're getting into just after lunchtime. I think most of the Carolinas, Georgia, and just the core of the southeast, mid-Atlantic will be pretty quiet today. Georgia, Alabama, as moisture really rotates around high pressure. And then as we're getting into the middle of the night tonight, maybe some heavier rain, maybe some storms kind of dance off the coast of the eastern sections of Florida, east coast of Florida, and we continue just to get kind of a moist feed as basically there's high pressure over here and you're getting moisture kind of rotating, getting pulled out the Gulf. It's not a lot, but between the system coming from the west and this high pressure rotating moisture out the Gulf of Mexico, these will kind of work in tandem to bring a big time moist flow into this area here in the coming days. We're waking up tomorrow morning. Some of these showers will begin to enter the picture in western Kentucky, western Tennessee. We might wake up to some light rain showers for our Saturday morning in these regions. Not a big weather day across the southeast. Northeast, kind of the same thing. Getting into this afternoon, pretty quiet weather. But some rain is beginning to enter the picture in Indiana, Ohio. We'll speak more on that once we get to the north central frame. Now, a lot of people ask, do you put Ohio in the northeast frame or do you put it in kind of the north central frame? Most of the time I put Ohio in the northeast frame. But, you know, I kind of mix match them sometimes also. I know that gets kind of confusing. But this evening, some rain will begin to enter into southern sections of Michigan. You'll start to see some rainy times in Detroit, even Cleveland later tonight. And then a little bit of rain, snow mix will mix here in southern Ontario where you're just cold enough for a little bit of snow to mix in. And then we're waking up for tomorrow morning and some rain is starting to enter eastern areas of Ohio and then the far northwest corner of PA and then western sections of New York State. Could start out with a little bit of a wintry mix, kind of a rain around the eastern end of Lake Ontario. We'll see if that actually unfolds. Other than that, quiet weather. South central U.S., we start to get a little bit more active. Waking up to some rain. Kind of rain will continue to kind of head off to the east. I think we'll be dealing with some rain showers in like St. Louis throughout the afternoon and really throughout the entire evening. Could get a moist feed down here in Texas where you guys, getting into this afternoon will continue, especially the eastern and southeastern and southern sections of Texas. We'll continue just to see some on and off showers anywhere from Austin down to Houston, Corpus Christi, over to the Louisiana-Texas border. You'll continue just to get some rain showers. And then as we're getting to later this evening, these could kind of become a little bit more widespread again in Arkansas. It's not going to be a washout, just on and off pesky sprinkles and showers. Eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, Arkansas, and then we're getting into tomorrow morning. And then here comes our system beginning to enter the picture, that upper level low that's affecting areas of Arizona, California. We'll begin to get a move on and start to move into Arizona. And we're waking up tomorrow morning with lower elevation kind of rounds of rain, higher elevation snow, and snow is beginning to enter the Rockies just in time for Christmas. So we will get you more detailed information on that. But this rain right here won't add up much, maybe 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of rain. It could add up, a decent clip up here, though. As we are moving into this afternoon, rain will begin to take over. It's already kind of beginning to take over most of the state of Illinois. Rain will begin to move into Chicago. If you're doing any last-second shopping up here in Chicago, it's going to be a rainy evening. Bring your umbrella. This rain will begin to move into Indianapolis, Indiana. Like I said, southern Michigan. I don't know if it'll quite reach Milwaukee, but I would definitely keep your umbrella around your raincoat just in case this rain does trend a little bit further north. And then rain will make it all the way to the central, maybe even the northern sections of lower Michigan. And then we're getting into the overnight hours. Rain will begin to overspread into Cleveland, especially northern Ohio. We get a little bit closer to look at this, how much rain could fall between now and the next 24 hours. Chicago could get a good half inch of rain. I mean, for this to be falling at kind of a light to at times, maybe a moderate clip, I mean, that's pretty much a whole afternoon, evening's worth of rain. So definitely some rain will be falling. This will not be snow at all. This will just be rain. You guys are really in a torch pattern where you're well above average. I saw the 7-day forecast from a meteorologist out of Milwaukee, and your average high in Milwaukee this time of year is like 35. Your average low is like 22. And your highs are like in the 50s and lows are in the 40s, which is definitely well above average. But this is how much rain could fall in these states between now and the next 24 hours. Some appreciable rainfall totals, but nobody's going to get like an inch or anything like that. Western U.S., like I said, you can see what's going on pretty well. This area of energy, this area of energy. And these two are kind of just moving in at the same time. Eventually they will meet and kind of combine combine into one. Now this storm system will bring some cold air in, so the snow levels will drop, but so you'll get kind of a quick storm. If this was going to last longer, you'd probably have winter storm warnings up in the Cascades, but this is going to move in and out so fast, going to dump several inches of snow and then move on out. But I would really watch out down here, like I mentioned, where there is a marginal risk of severe weather. If you look closely down here in southern Arizona, you see these kind of reds. There's going to be the threat for some thunderstorms down here in southern Arizona. If you live in southern Arizona, definitely be on alert for some thunderstorms throughout the afternoon and the evening, and then the threat kind of fizzles out as we get later into the overnight hours. But here's that snow kind of overspreading Idaho. Some snow begins to move into western Montana late tonight. And then eventually these start to combine with one another as we're getting into tomorrow. You see how this weaker area of energy kind of tries to combine with a stronger area of energy, and then they will combine into one. And we're about to speak on that here in a second. But how much rain could fall in the Pacific Northwest? Not a whole lot. Somebody could get over an inch of rain. But you guys can handle an inch of rain up here for sure. But this is how much rain could fall in these regions as far as snow. Several inches of snow up in the higher elevations of the Cascades, even some snow in the Olympic Mountains. But certainly, some light snowfall accumulations in Idaho and Yellowstone National Park areas of southern Montana over the next 36 hours, western Montana. And then the snow does begin to add up down here in the southern Rockies region. And, if we look down here, that's a lot of rain for Arizona, guys. I mean, 1 to 2 inches of rain. So we do need to watch out for flash flooding in the southern half of Arizona for sure. So, as far as temperatures, you're going to be locked into some very cold temperatures. Some of the coldest air in the lower 48 is in the northeast, with this kind of just lingering cold air from this high pressure and this trough that swung through. You'll struggle to get above freezing in Boston today, New York City. It's going to be a cold day if you're doing any shopping. It'll feel like winter, but without any snow on the ground. It'll feel like Christmas time, but without any snow on the ground. Certainly not going to look like one of those Christmas movies where snow's on the ground. I don't know if you guys ever watch, and think about this, like Christmas Vacation and Home Alone, and just these Christmas movies that are fantastic in my opinion. And I believe Christmas Vacation's based out of Milwaukee or Chicago. I think. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. And maybe Home Alone is, and maybe I'm getting it mixed up. But it is wild seeing these snowy scenes around Christmas time. But it just seems like over the last few Christmases, you're not having that. Especially New York City. New York City, I mean, it just seems like, you just get less and less of these, before Christmas winter storms. It really makes a winter wonderland around Christmas time. It just hasn't been like that lately. We're just in a kind of a drought when it comes to winter storms before Christmas time. But anyways, enough of that. Warmer than average temperatures in the Ohio Valley, but still chilly, 40s. Starting to warm up in the deep south, starting to get into the 60s and 70s as some warm, moist air gets pushed into the region, well above average in the northern portion of the country. I mean, 40s and 50s is well above average up here in the upper portion of the country. I mean, look all the way up to the northern plains. You're getting up to 50 degrees all the way up to Canada, above the Montana-Canadian line. Wild stuff. All of Texas will be warm today for late December standards, and I mean you're pretty much still above average out west. So let's move forward. All right, so talking about the storm system coming up, it's already entered the picture. Tomorrow there will be a risk of severe weather that will move east. It's starting to move into really western Texas, maybe a small corner of southeast New Mexico. We'll see if this increases. Right now, they just have a marginal risk. Okay, right now, below the 2% chance of a tornado in the wind and hail threat. Really, it's just driven off a hail threat. And if we look at the latest HRRR model, we'll start off tomorrow morning. So this is getting into tomorrow. We'll see how this evolves. A big push of rain moves into the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. And then look at this line of thunderstorms that develops tomorrow, late afternoon, evening in western Texas. You got to watch this. At the same time, back in cold air, snow starting to fall just across areas of the Rockies, starting to move into the plains. And this is only going to go out 48 hours. But I mean, we'll take it all the way out to it's about midnight Central Time, and we got a line of storms kind of making its way through a good portion of Texas, all of Oklahoma. It's knocking on the doorstep of Oklahoma City, and even some stormy times here in areas of Kansas. This is just good old rain up here. Nebraska points north, but look at the rain starting to switch to snow at this point. As you start to see some snow tomorrow late night into Christmas Eve morning into areas of even Denver, up to western Nebraska, even a little bit of light snow into areas of north, just pretty much the Dakotas, a little bit of light snow in Wyoming. But this is as far out as we go. But this does look like, a hefty storm system. Another low is going to try to develop down here. We just need to figure this out. But as far as looking at the Euro, what does the Euro show? Euro brings this up. We're getting into tomorrow evening. Look at the snow beginning to fall across areas of the Rockies. Now, I think this is going to be lighter the further north you go, but it could be heavier. It could be a lot of moisture to the south of this low right here. And then this is when we start to get into Christmas Eve morning. Some snow is certainly trying to fall across areas of pretty much all of Colorado, even Wyoming. Snow beginning to pick up Christmas Eve morning. Let's just say Sunday morning for now. I'm going to end up saying Christmas Eve morning or Christmas Day morning about 100 times if I don't just cut it a little bit short here. But starting to get into the afternoon of Sunday, and we got some good old Christmas Eve snow falling across areas of Nebraska, Arizona, Colorado, up into the Dakotas. And we keep this going, and really what happens after this is interesting. And as we're getting into Christmas Day morning, we are starting to see still just snow, maybe a little snow up here in Minnesota. This is just rain in Iowa, Missouri, just all these areas, just rain. It's going to be a rainy start to your Christmas morning. But this another low tries to develop. Looks like a totally different low. And as we're rounding off our Christmas Day, we're getting into the evening of the 25th. The Euro really likes this to amplify and start an all-out winter storm in areas of Nebraska and even getting into South Dakota. This is a big question mark right here. And what's crazy is we're below 100 hours. So this is a big question mark. It really is. And we'll stop it here. Now, what about the GFS? Really just going to focus on the next couple days. GFS shows snow. It really wants a more heftier event for areas of Colorado, especially northeast Colorado, getting into western Nebraska. Brings an area of moderate snow across areas of South Dakota as we're getting into the afternoon of the 24th. Brings some snow into northwest areas of Minnesota also. And then here comes that other low developing it kind of just gets pushed north, and it kind of does the same thing as the Euro, but it doesn't push this area of heavy snow into deeper into Nebraska like the Euro does. It likes it more so in western Iowa, maybe even sneaking up into the Minneapolis area. But it definitely does the same things the Euro does as we're getting into Christmas evening and then the day after Christmas. But it's just further east. Okay, so that's just something we need to watch. We need to see if the GFS and the Euro can try to find some sort of agreement here in the coming day or two. But as far as snowfall in Colorado from the National Weather Service between now and Christmas morning, I mean, they're going for, a few inches of snow in Denver. And then, of course, the Rockies, depending on your elevation, it's going to get a good old pre-Christmas storm to really solidify this white Christmas. But it's going to be a question mark on if southeast areas of Colorado gets anything. But I do think you got to watch northeast Colorado. I think that there's a chance for maybe somebody getting a jackpot. In fact, you look at the National Weather Service write-up on this, they say highest uncertainty given potential banding, meaning if banding does set up, more snow could fall. But Denver, they're going for 2 to 4 inches of snow, guys. I mean, if you really want a white Christmas, they're calling for it. And I would think that this would probably linger on the ground until Christmas morning. But, they're going for some kind of wide range amounts for like Fort Morgan, Akron, not sure how y'all pronounce it in Colorado, Sterling, 2 to 5 inch snow amounts, 2 to 5, 1 to 4 in Sterling. So it's a big question mark in this area for sure. So, but going forward here, if we look a little bit on up the road up into Wyoming, the Dakotas, western Nebraska, and we keep this going, the blend of all models, this isn't the National Weather Service forecast, the blend of all models, which they typically agree on one another. There's just some kind of very wild totals out there. They're just kind of scattered about, very isolated. You see these weird gaps here. I think it really tells you that the models are kind of struggling with what they like in these regions. But if we take it all the way out to about the morning of the 28th, it does eventually start to show some snow in most of Nebraska and then a good portion of South Dakota. So I would watch out Nebraska. Nebraska, if you're tuning in from that region, depending on your location, I think western Nebraska is a good bit for a little bit of accumulating snow from this storm that's really positioned time frame wise around Christmas. But what happens after that, especially further east in Nebraska, it's a big question mark. You got to even watch northern areas of Kansas. Remember, this is just a blend of all models, so it's blending all the model guidance together. But Wyoming, certainly good for a little bit of snow. Montana's a big question mark. I don't think you're going to see a lot from this. Neither do I think North Dakota is going to see a lot from this. But this could change a little bit. We move further to the northeast and east. We're getting into Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, day after Christmas. And you start to see some trace amounts start to pop up. And we take it all the way through about the evening of the 28th. And not a whole lot showing up right now. But depending on what that second low does, some things could shift with this. So continue to stay tuned for updates if you're wondering about any snow after Christmas. But this is not going to come before Christmas. So unfortunately for you folks that always want that, not everybody cares about a white Christmas. So I'm not going to speak for everybody. But for folks that do like the snow on the ground for Christmas time, a lot of these areas are not going to see it that typically might see it. So moving forward, guys, let's talk about the eastern U.S. as far as the rain chances coming up for Christmas. So we're taking it into the afternoon of the 23rd. Then we start to get into Christmas Eve morning. Here is the rain starting to enter Louisiana. This is more the widespread rain outside of what you're already seeing over the next couple of days. Starting to get into Christmas Eve afternoon. And then you're starting to get into Christmas morning. Rain all the way up from Canada, all the way through the upper Midwest, through the Mid-South, the Mississippi Valley, all the way to the Deep South, guys. You're waking up to rain. And some of it could be heavy. And as we were making our way throughout our day, Christmas, rain begins to move into Georgia, the Carolinas, the southern Appalachian Mountains, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. And then we're starting to get into Christmas night, the day after Christmas, the morning of the 26th. This is when a little bit of cold air starts to get involved. So you might start to deal with a little bit of ice and kind of the northern sections of the upper Midwest, northern Wisconsin, the UP, as a little bit of cold air starts to get involved. But I think that this is just going to be a lot of rain a couple days after Christmas. So if you got any outdoor toys that the kids might get and they're wanting to play with them a couple days after Christmas, it might be a soggy couple days after Christmas Day for areas in the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. And I think eventually we will dry out. And then after that, that is when the beginning stages of pattern change really start to take hold. So as far as how much rain we're expecting, this is kind of the first push of rain throughout the next 24 to 36 hours. But as we are making our way, man, this is being slow. As we're making our way through Christmas Day, day after Christmas, and then eventually throughout the end of next week, good bit of rain could fall. I told you guys, I know I've said it a million times, that we were going to enter a much rainier pattern, and it's just coming one after the other. And here it is. Could be a soaker for areas of the Deep South for Christmas Day, and then eventually even moving into the evening of Christmas Day after Boxing Day. You guys are going to get a lot of rain for the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic up into the Northeast again. So soggy Christmas Day expected for a lot of the country. So moving forward, let's talk about that pattern change. So let's take a look at the GFS. So we're going to start this the day after Christmas. All right, this system that we just spoke on moves through the Northeast, bringing a lot of rain, no snow. What happens is troughing sets up, just a broad area of low pressure sets up, lower pressure over areas of the country. And cold air comes in behind this big storm system and starts to really set up shop across the Great Lakes region, areas of the Midwest, just the kind of the middle of the country. You see this high pressure, strong high up here in Canada. We get a push of cold air behind this. So even though you're going to have a pretty rainy Christmas period for the Great Lakes region, I think right after we get off after Christmas Day, I think you immediately switch to colder air, some lake enhanced snow, lake effect snow, and just some more wintry times. So as this last little bit of energy is pulling through, it could mix with some snow, but we start to get pieces of energy that rotate around this trough. And as it does, it amplifies this cold air. You see these blue lines? That's not the freezing line of the surface. That's the freezing line in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We won't get too deep into that right now, but when you start to see this 540 blue line dip down, you know there's some cold air nearby at least. And sure enough, you're getting into all snow as we're getting into the 28th, and this is getting, about 5 to 6 days out, so still pretty far out. But we need to watch for these pieces of energy to really dive down. And check this out. As we get about 1 week out, cold air sinks down to the middle of the country in the eastern U.S. And you start to see some teasing with the models a week out with some light snow in Texas. You're starting to get more snow in the Rockies. You're getting a lot of energy flying around. I'm going to use the word energy a ton over the next several days. There's a lot of energy flying around. As you can tell, this is next Friday. There's no huge storm system anywhere on the board, but you're getting multiple pieces of energy flying around this trough. And this is kind of being indicated in the form of just lake effect snow and then northwest flow across the Appalachian Mountains. And we keep this going. Cold air really sags down. And, we keep mentioning after the New Year's, but the models are really liking the idea of this pattern getting set a few days before New Year. I really think this system moving through for Christmas is going to kind of set the stages, the true beginning stages of a pattern change. And sure enough, we start to get 8-9 days out, and you see that 540 line dipping all the way down to Florida. There's some cold air in place. We still got some snow. I think that the ski country up in West Virginia, North Carolina, I think that it'll really crank up after Christmas. I really do. Some cold air starts to move in. This isn't super cold air, but pretty chilly air, really at minimum seasonal air, and below average temperatures for the Southeast. And this continues to dive down, guys, and we're starting to get to New Year's Eve. We're getting pretty far out. I know we're getting to that 10-day range, and cold air still around. And I know there's no big storm system. You're thinking, Mitch, what are you showing me this for? I don't see really anything. But know that there's a lot of energy that's not reflecting in the form of precipitation on your map. There's a big storm system entering the west as we enter our new year. But look at this little system right here that flies down. It's getting suppressed because there's a lot of cold air in place, kind of bogging this system down. And look at that little bit of snow showing up in Alabama and Mississippi. Now, guys, this is not a forecast. Please don't tell everybody and your cousin's brother that it's going to snow in Alabama and Mississippi January 3rd. This is just showing the energy flying around this trough. Sure enough, it tries to do something for the southeast. I'm showing you this because the potential. And here comes a bigger system that kind of moves in, kind of amplifies the pattern. This is much warmer, but then it looks like at the very end, another cold air mass is about to push down. Okay, you look at the European, same thing. We get this, post-Christmas storm out the way. The main system moves in, and then this trough drops down with an associated energy with it. And the Euro is much more aggressive with the associated energy that drops down with this trough. You got a low over the Great Lakes region, and you're starting to get cold air mixing down. And this could bring and kickstart a lake effect snow event across the Great Lakes region, northwest flow events. And then we get past that, a lot of lake effect snow. Cold air begins to dive down, and we start to get past the 7-day range. And you see that 540 line evolves differently, but it's there. The 540 line dipping all the way down to the southeast. Doesn't look as cold for the middle of the country, but this could change a lot. And we go about 240 hours out, and looks like you're it looks like you just got more cold air up in Canada. It looks like you got another piece of energy to fly down. I know you're thinking, I don't see anything there. But you can't just look at what it shows on the surface. This is vortices, guys. This is energy in the atmosphere. And what I want to show you really here is all this energy flying around. We're starting to get till after Christmas. I know I said that about a million times already. Trough begins to dig down here. And then you just got tons of energy flying, sort of surrounding this trough, if you will. Flying down, kind of just going everywhere, okay? And we get this back off, keep this going. Tons of energy just kind of flying around. Each little piece of energy could bring something. But until you can kind of consolidate and combine this energy, kind of phase them, that's the word we use, I don't think any of these pieces of energy are going to be a big storm system. But that could change. It can, and in fact, you look at the end of the Euro, you got two big pieces of energy trying to get together. And, you got this energy over the Carolinas that looks pretty stout, but it's weaker. Even though it looks vibrant, it's weaker. And if you kind of look at the GFS's version of this, you move through here in time. And remember that energy that I was showing, it was showing some blue over Alabama and Mississippi. That's it right there. You see how it's digging much further south? And then it tries to get its act together right into here, evolve into a stronger system, but it doesn't do it until later on. Then we got this is the big area of energy we always watch out for, big area right here. So energy is going to be a big topic as we get into the winter months. It's how everything connects. It's how we really watch. We watch for trends, how things evolve. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is Big Trough is going to settle down to the eastern U.S. with a lot of areas of kind of interest that kind of flow around it. So this is where I can lose some people, and I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can. I think I'm going to explain it much better than I have done the last videos. You see this blue area? That is lower pressure. The yellows, the oranges, the reds, that's higher pressure. The bluer areas are typically associated with stormier conditions, low pressure, and typically you have weather out ahead of kind of the southeast or eastern base of this trough. So this will probably be where all the weather is right in here on this. And you typically have an associated cold front behind it. Brings in cooler temperatures. Sometimes it's briefly, sometimes it's for a longer period of time. So what you got going on here is this lower pressure. This is our storm system, Christmas time and after. And sure enough, remember how we know that it's going to be some rainier conditions across the deep south? Well, it makes sense because this lower pressure's here. All the weather is out in front of it. And that's why you're getting a lot of rain for Christmas way out in this region right here, because this trough's digging down and all the weather's typically right in front of the trough. So this is digging down, this trough really amplifies. And this is when our pattern starts to look stout. It isn't going to immediately reflect with these gigantic winter storms. That's not how it works typically. Sometimes it starts off with a huge banger, huge winter storm. But in this case, I don't think it is. So one thing you'll notice right off the dot, lower pressure over the south, the eastern U.S., and just the southeast. This indicates a trough, a dip in the jet stream. There's many ways you can explain a trough, the bluer areas. Okay? Think of it as a dip in the jet stream, which creates a trough. And it creates just that dip in the jet stream, which means the storm track tracks lower. But if you notice up here, The warmer colors, this is higher pressure bulging into Canada, which has always been here. And what if the big thing that you notice here is this higher pressure, this ridge starts to nudge towards Alaska. We like to see that if we like winter weather and colder weather somewhere in the lower 48, especially the eastern U.S. So if you notice, this ridge begins to build into Alaska. You see these warmer colors building up here, and we start to get into the last day of the year, the 31st, New Year's Eve. You got a couple things happening here. One thing you got going on is you got what looks like an active storm track down here indicated by the lower pressure in the southeast and the eastern U.S. You got a ridge that is pumping all the way up to Alaska. Okay, this is bringing above average temperatures all the way to Alaska. So I'm actually going to go a little bit further. Okay, let's take it right here. I know this is about 10 and a half, 11 days out, but models are really honed in on this. So this is not textbook necessarily, but I'm gonna try to draw this. One thing right here is you got a ridge over Alaska. You see this big ridge going all the way up to Alaska. I know I done said it 100 times. And then you got this big dip in the jet stream digging all the way down into here. You can see it by that one blue line. All right, we call this a positive PNA when you have a ridge in the western U.S. and western Canada. And when we have blocking a ridge up into Alaska, we call this a negative EPO. So when you have a positive PNA and a negative EPO, if you hear those terms, and we'll dive deeper into that here in the coming days, that typically means, it especially means for a negative EPO, that when you have a ridge that builds up into Alaska, basically the Arctic, it can kind of split what we call the polar vortex. So you have this splitting at this point. It's splitting this way, and then it's splitting down here. So what we call a cross-polar flow. Now, I know you're thinking, well, polar air, I'm just seeing a bunch of oranges and yellows and not really much blue into here. Well, you got to think, it's still probably above average temperature-wise up here. But what's kind of making me a little bit more happy, because I'm a winter weather fan, is you're starting to see an attachment of some cooler temperatures of this kind of polar vortex right up here with this huge trough over the eastern U.S. and then just areas of the Atlantic. So this right here is bringing in a lot of cold air from the Arctic because, let's get this off the screen, because this ridge right here is nudging to the Arctic, splitting the polar vortex, allowing for a dislodgement of colder air to come down here. And what does it do when it comes down here? It kind of comes down into an active storm track, kind of going like this or maybe like this. So this pumps in some cold air into an active storm track down here, okay, which will be here. So cold air getting pumped into that active storm track, what do you get? Well, you start to get chances of winter weather. So yeah, I hope I explained that in a way where you guys can understand. That's huge for me. But when you see this tall ridge or these kind of orange blobs, some people like to say, building up into here, you know that you're going to get something dislodged, whether it's cold air or whatever it may be, which is always going to be cold air. So you like to see that. So, you know, you flip this and you kind of, let's back it up here and let's look at what this means as far as temperatures. Okay, let's look right here. And I mean, already starting to get into the 28th, you're starting to see, and it looks like we're at the, yeah, we are the 06Z. Let's go back here. You see, it's much warmer than average up here in Canada. But watch as we start to get into about a week out, we start to see below average temperatures show up for the deep south. And, you know, it's still above average up in Canada, but you start to get above average temperatures up in Alaska about 10 days from now, well above average. I don't know if you ever heard, but when you get above average temperatures in Alaska, that typically spells good news for winter weather fans on down the line down here into the lower 48. So you're starting to see these below average temperatures show up in the southeast. And once you start to get deep into, not deep, but deeper into January, several days into January, the entire lower portion of the lower 48 starts to get below average. And you just got the beginning stages of the pattern change starting at the end of this year, next several days, and then it really gets in place as we enter January. So this is looking likely. Is it going to happen? I can't say for sure, but man, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I really am. So we'll continue to fine tune this. 40-minute video, not going to drop until probably like 9:15 now. Sorry about that. God bless all y'all. Have a great day.